I am still haunted by this boy. My camera has saved lives, but not this time. Could I have done more to save him? Another nameless victim of the endless tragedy of Africa.
Yes, Namade sabi me. Look at the fire, explain the boss man. But let them not kill me. Namade sabi me.
This is Freetown, capital of Sierra Leone, my country. My name is Soria Samura. For most of my life, it's been a good place to live, rich in natural resources, the envy of the West. Much of our wealth has come from things most people have little knowledge of. They should have been a blessing, instead they are a curse. They have torn Sierra Leone apart in a bloody civil war, for who controls them controls the country. They are diamonds. I work as a cameraman editor, much of the time for the United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, filming their work with children here. But through the 90s, the fighting came ever closer to my home in Freetown. As it grew in brutality, I used the only weapon I had, my camera. A year ago, my life changed forever. My pictures of the war won me these international awards, but very little of the footage has actually been shown, judged too extreme for television. Now, you may judge for yourselves. In the battle for Freetown, the vaguest suspicion was enough for either side to kill. So many died that bodies were dumped outside the city's mortuary. We had seen familiar parts of the place we lived in turned into battlefields. You became glad when you didn't recognize the next body you came across. In this madness, my job was to record the history happening in my country, where random roadside justice was the order of the day. Personally, I feel that was the only way that people will be able to understand what was happening in Sierra Leone when they see the true pictures, the real pictures, the brutality. It was a very dangerous thing to do at the time. But there was a silent majority suffering for things that they have no idea about. A lot of the people living in this country don't care about the politics. They don't even know about the diamonds. 90% of the people in this country have never seen a diamond. And there they were, having their arms and limbs chopped off for nothing that was of their own making. And I wanted to document this evidence. I wanted it to be seen exactly as it was happening here. And for me, it wasn't just about true journalism. It wasn't just about reporting it as it was happening. It was about a nation in dire need, a nation that was being murdered, a country that was dying, that was left to die by the Western world, by the so-called developed world. And nobody came to our aid. Just a year ago, things came to a head. Rebel forces were closing in on Freetown. Stories of atrocities spread fear into the people. The democratically elected government of President Kaba organized this last desperate rally. Its only defenders, the Nigerian-led peacekeeping force known as ECOMOG. So, where was the help from the West? Now democracy here was in danger, nowhere to be seen. Yet the West had blood on its hands too. Rebels have paid for their weapons by selling diamonds to the West for millions of dollars. One man suspected of being a rebel was chased into a police station. Had I known at the time that rebels were already mingling with the crowds, I would not have filmed. Later they were to execute government supporters recognized in the crowd. 4 days later, rebels hit Freetown. On the 6th of January 1999, I was in this building with a friend. I came over to the window. I watched them shooting at houses. I knew it was dangerous, so I had to be careful. Because if they realized that I was filming them or the slightest movement on the curtain, they would have attacked this house, killed me, not just probably me, but probably everyone in the house, and set the house on fire as well. So I had to be careful not to be noticed by them. The next 3 days were a defining moment for me. To film or not to film. I took my camera and left the relative safety of my refuge. I began to film openly, but to be safe, I had to pretend that I supported the rebels. I had to do a good job. If they suspected me, then I knew I would be killed. What happened to the family in this house happened to many others. They provoked the rebels' fury when they refused to come out and act as a human shield. So they were forced to remain inside and they were burned alive. As they tried to escape, rebel soldiers stoned them. The daughter is the only survivor. With rebel soldiers watching, it was impossible to talk to her. But this was the start of what the rebels called Operation Annihilate Every Living Thing. For some reason, I don't know, they let me film. I stayed safe playing along with their filming requests. On this occasion, they ordered me to gather some local children singing their song, "We Want Peace." The rebels now controlled most of the city except for the very west of Freetown, still held by ECOMOG forces. I was taken to this bridge. It gave the rebels protection from air attacks, and it was their headquarters in the west of Freetown. I thought I was never going to walk out of here alive. This is the bridge that the rebels were using as their headquarters, and this is where I was brought the moment they caught me. The first thing I did was to pray to God to look after whatever is left of me and protect my children, because I know what the rebels were capable of doing. In fact, the very minute I was brought here, they brought a young lady whom they raped right in front of our very eyes. I was forced to look on. There was nothing we could do to help her. We had to witness this sort of scenes for about 3 days, after which ECOMOG located the area where the rebels were and attacked. At this time, they all had to run for their lives. A lot of them had to run towards the east, which was still under their control, and I had to make for ECOMOG lines. Dangerous as it was though, but I was lucky to survive. Hundreds of civilians had escaped as well from the rebel advance. Among them, desperate people with terrible stories of what they had experienced at the hands of the rebels.
The best people all in our class. Now, major in the group of music. Even that when I'm a best friend, Emmanuel Pratt, they don't kill an outalo. Most of the company where they for don't be better people in the future. They don't they kill them. But one thing where me more in the more than me, the man them in camp will be don't begin to accept them for say then they can't surrender. But it can't be say now, they say Operation No Living Team. So if they talk say Operation No Living Team, I just tried, I just did the think over my own mind for say, if when I say Operation No Living Team, what I wanna feel say una for rule.
When they retreat, the thing where them passing only the bondios, all. You understand? Cotton, Cotton Bobby, Cotton. Then one day, and all feet, and I afraid Sierra Leone right now.
Believe it or not, these people are lucky to be alive, even if they will now be handicapped for life. The rebels began chopping hands off during the Democratic election campaign in 1996. The election slogan was, "The future is in your hands." So the rebels chopped the hands off anyone they could find to stop them from voting. Worse, they appointed children to be the ones who used the axe. It was too dangerous for the international press. One cameraman had been killed, another seriously injured. The 7 remaining journalists made the right decision and got out. If this were not my country, then I would have left with them. It was 5 days after the rebels entered Freetown when I made my escape to the Ecomog lines. And I began filming with the Nigerian soldiers who make up most of the peacekeeping force. They, together with what was left of the Sierra Leone army, were all we had between the elected government and the complete takeover by the rebels. The rebels had had a field day, killing, shooting, and burning everything around them. Now the Ecomog forces were fighting back, trying to regain ground. Ecomog forces now moved into the center of Freetown. Civilians were caught in the crossfire. A lone rebel sniper brought the forces under fire. The civilians huddled together for protection, whilst they tried to locate the gunman. By the time we got to this point, there was heavy fighting going on. This was the most dangerous place to be on Earth at the time. Ecomog was trying to capture the building on the far side because a sniper was operating from that building. And by the time we got close to the building, an Ecomog major and captain had already been shot dead. Because of that, Ecomog went haywire. Then came news that another senior officer and a Sierra Leonean soldier had been shot by the rebel sniper. One person with a rifle was destroying the morale of these soldiers. The locals, including small children, watched the full horror of the gun battle in front of them. At last, Ecomog soldiers took the building and found this young boy. As far as they were concerned, this child was the sniper. He would be shown no mercy.
Who is this one? Okay.
Ferry Johnson.
As with all captured suspected rebels, he is tied and will surely face execution. Another suspect is caught in the same building. He is forced into the street and shot by the Kamajo civil militia, allied to the government and the ECOMOG forces. It looked like the boy was going to die as well. But by fate, the Sierra Leonean Minister of Information, Dr. Julius Spencer, happened to be in the street at the time, seeing the confrontation for himself. He intervened and stopped the killing. At that time, ECOMOG viewed everyone as a potential enemy. Anyone rumored to have helped the rebels, no matter where the rumor came from, was considered a traitor and treated accordingly. Because I had filmed with them on the front line, I was now allowed to film in most parts of the city. I filmed many beatings like this one and the executions that followed. Sometimes just because I was there with my camera, they would not be so quick to condemn suspects to an immediate sentence of death. In a way, these, the very people who were supposed to protect us, found it hard to avoid the same cruel methods as the rebels. Karim Cissé wasn't a rebel, but a neighbor reported that his 12-year-old brother Mark had become one. He said he'd seen Mark with a bag believed to have contained money and small arms. By the time I arrived, Mark had already been beaten and killed. Now it looked like his brother, Karim's turn.
Which incident? The day the rebels came in? Yes, we did a central police station. Good. Okay, when we did a central police station, now me and my boss man, they work me and Sule. Now we work together. And they swear to me, Almighty Allah.
Karim's mother too was brutally beaten here. The beating went on for hours and then they executed her. Then they tortured and killed her husband, a police officer, then another brother. In all, 4 of Karim's immediate family were killed here by peacekeepers. I don't know how many people were killed here and across Freetown. Certainly dozens, maybe hundreds were buried around the site where Karim and his family were taken. I never expected to see Karim again, but amazingly I found him. His remaining family now relies on him alone.
When somebody now can see me when they beat me, different person can see me when they beat me. Now he will call me Bossman Khan. Because at that time I become hopeless now. I don't know waiting for the game. And beat me, say I'm hopeless. I don't know waiting for the game. So now they go call me Bossman Khan. The Bossman Khan talks in now. This Papa not been there with them. Now we've been there up and down the way for survive, for fight, for make life free.
Somehow, like so many who have been caught in this mess, he manages to put food in their mouths. It is the strength of people like Karim that is my country's greatest hope. He has lost so much, but he is strong for those who still need him. On the streets of Freetown, he still sees some of the soldiers who beat him and killed so many of his family. We have an amnesty for the moment between the rebels and the government. And everywhere the ECOMOG soldiers still keep the peace. In the absence of anyone else, most people in Sierra Leone want them to stay. They are the only barrier we have between more insanity and the peace we pray for. I'm on my way to look for the child I saw captured and beaten in the back of that truck more than a year ago. I now know his name is Moses. Since the attack on Freetown, I have wondered hard about all this brutality started by war over diamonds. We are paying the price for a mineral that here drives everyone crazy with greed and hatred. But in the West, it's a jewel giving us the ultimate symbol of love. Moses now lives by the sea in a rehabilitation center for child soldiers. Most of these children have killed, and yet they are all innocent of any crime. All of them were once ordinary kids before the rebels came. Their parents were butchered before their very eyes. Some were even forced to take part in the killings. The rebel army became the only family they knew, and they did what they did because if they disobeyed, they too would have been killed. But I am here to see Moses again, and the story of Moses is not like the others. Moses. Come on. Nice. How you doing? Okay? Come, sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. So, how are you? Ernest is one of the rehabilitation center's helpers, and this is Moses' foster mother, Martha. To her, the idea of Moses being a child soldier is ridiculous. That's because Moses, who is now 13, has been living in this community since he was 5, when this place was not a rehabilitation center for child soldiers, but an orphanage. As long as they've known Moses, he has been mentally handicapped. He cannot speak. He can barely put on his own shoes, let alone fire a gun. But he, like many boys of his age, simply needs love and attention. This is Father Baton. He's been running this orphanage for 30 years, and he's the one who knows more about Moses than anyone else.
What hit me most was how did we get to a situation like that by which somebody could feel threatened by a child of this age and this kind of child. You know, the situation hit me more than the actual armament, because the children were used, were trained to bring messages or to inform as informants, and then to pretend that they were deaf and dumb so that they could not. They were trained, so the soldier could have been confused. Okay, although I could never admit that kind of violence to any child, even if he is guilty.
What a terrible state to be in when the authorities themselves fear children. But these soldiers have good reason when apparently innocent children have killed their comrades. No excuse maybe for the summary punishment meted out by some ECOMOG soldiers. But the soldiers see the children all the same as a lethal enemy. These are the children at the center who were brought here because of their past. These are children who have killed and raped, but often under the influence of cocaine and other drugs that they were forcibly given. They've been brought here to help them regain their lost childhood, and as a first step towards returning them to their families.
They launch attack. They get for enter a room, they kill me mama, and they get for hold me. Me a follow them. We get for another 8 years, they all I don't kill. They hold me, I don't put up a meal. They give me auction now. They get a meal back. Is a lot of sorry nobody. He said this time no sorry for nobody. Then begin fight in a chair. Then begin giving gun. We begin cutting now. We begin kill now. But I know for the not to be fought. I mean, one no go blame me for that. I know for the not to be fought.
Where the mark? Let me see the mark, but show me the mark. Waiting to get the mark.
Because people could have I capture me from papayas. I can go. So I can go now. They go give me drugs. So I give me drugs now. I kill now. I kill people there. I'm not going to know. Most people I don't kill. All the fire gone, I'm not going to almost people, I don't go kill. So, I caught people and kill, cotton. I believe do not touch me. Now, if I not do I fucking me.
So what you want now, let this country and the outside world do for change you now?
One walk by let them people school business. What you don't do, now let Papa call sorry for me. What you don't do.
The colonial powers gave much of Africa, including Sierra Leone, democracy. But now, when our democracy needs defending, the West looks the other way. If the rich countries won't come to our aid, then we will come to you, pressing at your borders for a chance of peace in the Western world. Africa is the responsibility of everyone, those who have benefited from the riches of this continent, and we Africans who live here now. Share our problems and help us resolve them so that we won't continue coming out of Africa with these horrible, horrible stories.